Our world was first charted in stories whispered under starlit skies. This journey uncovers humanity's oldest known maps of the stars and seas, revealing how ancient minds transformed observation into cosmology. By the end, you will see the night sky and the world's oceans through the eyes of our most ingenious ancestors. We will investigate why a bronze disk from Germany might be the oldest concrete sky map, and how a civilization without paper could navigate the vast Pacific Ocean. What part of the ancient world are you most curious to see mapped anew? Deep within the cave of Lascaux, alongside paintings of ancient bison and horses, lie patterns of dots that some researchers believe chart the stars. These markings, over 17,000 years old, suggest a human mind not just surviving but seeking to understand its place in a vast cosmos. This was the dawn of celestial cartography, a time when our ancestors first transformed the glittering chaos of the night into a familiar landscape of stories and signs. For nomadic tribes, the sky was a practical tool. The precise timing of a constellation's rise or fall could signal when to follow migrating herds or when to plant the first seeds, turning abstract patterns into a calendar essential for survival. They wove these celestial guides directly into their oral traditions, where the hero Orion forever chases the Pleiades sisters across the heavens, and the great bear Ursa Major circles the pole. This was more than myth. It was a sophisticated method of encoding critical knowledge, a universal clock and compass painted in light. The very act of naming the stars and connecting them into shapes reveals a profound relationship with the natural world, one built on observation, memory, and a deep, abiding need to find order in the universe. This intellectual leap from simply seeing to systematically recording set the stage for every map that would follow, beginning with humanity's first physical attempts to capture the sky not on a cave wall, but on a portable, lasting object. That leap from memory to metal represents one of humanity's greatest intellectual breakthroughs. We find its most stunning example in a German forest, where a bronze disk about the size of a small plate was discovered, its blue-green surface inlaid with gold symbols of a crescent moon, a full sun or moon, and a tight cluster of stars recognized as the Pleiades. This is the Nebra Sky Disk, a breathtaking artifact from the Bronze Age that scholars consider the world's oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos. It was not a solitary map but part of a sophisticated toolkit, found alongside two finely crafted swords, axes, and bracelets, suggesting its user was a person of immense importance, perhaps a time priest who could read the sky's schedule. The disk's arrangement is not random art, it is a functional instrument. The angle between the two golden arcs on its edge precisely matches the range the sun travels between summer and winter solstices in that region. When the Pleiades cluster appeared next to the crescent moon, it signaled to these early farmers the correct time to plant and harvest, turning celestial cycles into an agricultural calendar. This was a technology of time forged in bronze and gold. Far to the east, another ancient mind captured the stars on a different canvas. In the Ukraine, a mammoth tusk was carefully incised with a series of arcs and dots. While its meaning is still debated, the pattern bears a striking resemblance to the constellation we call Orion, a figure that has captivated human imagination across continents. To interpret these symbols, archaeologists and historians of science face a profound challenge. They must distinguish between abstract decoration and deliberate cartography without any written manual from the creators. The consensus is tilting toward function. These were not idle scribbles, they were vital tools for survival and ceremony, blending the practical need to track time with a spiritual desire to mirror the heavens on Earth. The craftsmanship itself is a marvel, from the precise hammering of the Nebra bronze to the patient carving of ivory, demonstrating that the drive to map the stars was important enough to demand the finest materials and the most skilled hands. These portable sky charts are our first tangible evidence of a cosmology made permanent, a direct bridge to the minds that held them, and from these handheld universes, humanity's ambition would soon scale up, building monuments that did not just depict the cosmos, but physically aligned with its eternal rhythms. These grand celestial maps were not meant to be held in the hand, but to be walked within. Ancient cultures began to build their cosmology directly into the earth, raising stones and mounds that transformed the landscape itself into a permanent astronomical instrument. At a place like Newgrange in Ireland, a massive 5,000-year-old tomb corridor faces the southeast. For just a few days around the winter solstice, as the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, a single, narrow beam of sunlight pierces a special opening above the entrance known as a roof box. This shaft of light travels down the long, dark passageway, gradually illuminating the central chamber for a breathtaking 17 minutes before retreating back into darkness. This was not a happy accident. It was a feat of engineering and precise observation that would have required generations of knowledge. A deliberate alignment meant to capture the moment of the sun's rebirth during the year's longest night. The entire structure functions as a sophisticated clock and calendar, linking the cycle of the seasons to a narrative of renewal that likely gave profound comfort and meaning to its builders. Across the sea, the Great Pyramids of Giza are also perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions, their sides facing true north, south, east, and west with an accuracy that still astounds surveyors today. The ancient Egyptians achieved this by tracking the circumpolar stars, specifically circling two stars in the constellation we call the Great Bear to find celestial north. Their pyramids were more than royal tombs, they were colossal models of a stable, orderly universe, gateways for a pharaoh's soul to ascend and join the eternal, unchanging stars. In England, the iconic Sarsen Circle of Stonehenge creates a series of sightlines. The central axis of the monument points to the summer solstice sunrise, while the famous heel stone marks the winter solstice sunset. Archaeoastronomers, scientists who study the astronomy of ancient peoples, explain that constructing these alignments required a deep understanding of a complex 19-year cycle of the moon as well as the sun. These sites were centers of knowledge where the movements of celestial bodies were tracked, predicted, and woven into the fabric of cultural identity. They represent a sacred geography, a fusion of earth and sky where myth became architecture, and the cosmos was mapped on a truly monumental scale. This same drive to understand and chart their world would soon lead these ingenious ancestors to turn their gaze from the fixed stars above to the shifting, mysterious expanse of the sea. While the cosmos was charted in stone and bronze, the shifting coastlines and winding rivers of the earth demanded a different kind of record. Picture a Babylonian scribe in a sun-baked courtyard, his hands pressing a stylus into a soft clay tablet. He was not just drawing, he was creating order from the seeming chaos of the world, producing what we now know as the Babylonian map of the world. This remarkable artifact, shaped like a flattened disk, is the oldest known map of our entire planet. At its heart lies the city of Babylon, drawn as a simple rectangle, a confident declaration of its central place in the universe. Radiating out from this center are other regions like Assyria, represented by small circles, while a vast, circular bitter river encircles everything, holding the known world afloat in a mysterious cosmic sea. Beyond this river, in the uncharted corners of the tablet, The scribe inscribed labels for mythical, far-off lands, places of legend where the sun was not seen and fantastic creatures were said to dwell. Historians of cartography explain that this was not a map for travel in the way we think of it today. You could not use it to plot a course to a neighboring city. Instead, it was a profound cosmological statement, a diagram of how the Babylonians understood their world's very structure, blending the geography they could walk with the mythology they believed. The stylized triangles for distant mountains and the wavy lines for the ocean were not just symbols, they were a language of power and perception. This map organized both the known and the unknown into a single, divinely ordained system, transforming fear of the outer darkness into a manageable chart. It reveals a culture that saw its own civilization as the center of a carefully ordered, if terrifyingly vast, reality. This impulse to chart the terrestrial world would soon manifest on other materials and in other lands, each culture imprinting its own unique world view onto parchment, papyrus, and stone. The stark contrast between the cosmic river of Babylon and the very real, life-giving waters of the Nile gave rise to a map-making tradition of unparalleled practicality and spiritual depth. A remarkable example is the Turin Papyrus map, a detailed scroll that charts the eastern desert's wadis and quarries with a surveyor's eye. Imagine the royal scribe who held this document, its faded ink outlining the precise route to a prized stone quarry. His map was not a grand cosmological statement, but a vital tool for a state-sponsored expedition. He would have noted landmarks like distinctive hills and dry riverbeds, estimating the day's journey between water sources, guiding miners through a landscape of rock and sun to bring back the materials that built a civilization. This necessity for precision was born from the Nile itself. Egyptologists note that the river's annual, predictable flood would erase the boundary markers between fields. To re-establish them fairly, Egyptian surveyors, known as rope stretchers, developed early forms of geometry, literally measuring the land with knotted cords. Their work required the first cadastral maps, careful records of plots and ownership, turning the chaotic aftermath of the flood into an orderly, taxable landscape. Yet this same culture possessed an entirely different kind of map, one not of this world. Within the coffins of high officials, we find the Book of the Two Ways, a complex and symbolic guide to the Juwat, the Egyptian underworld. This vivid, painted chart depicts a treacherous journey for the soul, filled with fiery lakes and demonic gatekeepers, offering two winding paths, one by water and one by land, to reach a peaceful afterlife. Here, mapping was not about earthly navigation but spiritual survival. The same society that produced a miner's practical guide also created elaborate blueprints for the soul's final voyage. This profound duality reveals a culture that saw no separation between the physical and the spiritual, where a map could lead you to a vein of gold or through the gates of eternity. Their meticulous record-keeping, born from the rhythm of the river, established a legacy of precision that would be essential for the next great leap in exploration, a leap that would carry humanity across the trackless sea. A Minoan captain stands at the prow of his vessel, the painted eye on the hull staring across the wine-dark sea. He carries no parchment chart, no rolled-up map. His navigation system is etched into memory, a living atlas passed from seasoned sailor to eager apprentice. The Minoan civilization of Crete was a thalassocracy, a true sea empire, and its power was built upon an intimate, generation-spanning knowledge of the Mediterranean. While no physical maps have survived the millennia, the evidence of their mastery is painted on their walls and scattered across the seabed. Their vibrant frescoes from Knossos and Akrotiri burst with life, showing sleek ships dancing among dolphins, celebrating a culture completely at home on the waves. The widespread distribution of their distinct pottery, found from Cyprus to the Greek mainland, traces the routes of a vast trade network, a ghostly map of their commercial reach. How did they find their way across such open water without a compass or a chart? Maritime archaeologists suggest they relied on something called sailing directions. These were not written instructions but meticulously memorized oral routes, rich with detail. A captain would know to steer toward a specific mountain peak that first appeared on the horizon, to follow the flight path of certain seabirds returning to their nests at dusk, indicating land was near, and to feel the subtle pull of known sea currents on the hull. They likely used lead-sounding weights, lowering them to not only gauge the depth but also to bring up a sample of the seabed. The texture of the sand or mud retrieved from the bottom would tell an experienced navigator exactly where he was, as reliably as any modern GPS coordinate. This was a mapping tradition built from shared, accumulated experience, a collective mental chart constantly refined with every voyage. It proves that a society can achieve breathtaking navigational sophistication without ever drawing a single line on a physical medium. Their entire culture became the map. This deep, embodied knowledge of the sea would be the inheritance of the next great seafaring power, a people who left behind not just whispers of their routes, but the very vessels that sailed them. The tranquility of the Mediterranean seabed was broken by a diver's discovery of a ghost ship. Resting off the coast of Turkey, the Uluburun shipwreck is a sunken library of the Bronze Age world. Its cargo, a staggering collection of 10 tons of copper ingots, gleaming tin, vibrant cobalt glass, and fragrant resins from distant lands, speaks of a single vessel carrying the wealth of empires. Each artifact, from a golden chalet to a collection of amber beads from the Baltic, was a piece of a vast economic puzzle, linking cultures from Egypt and Mycenaean Greece to far-off Mesopotamia. That such diverse goods could be found in one hull points to a complex web of trade routes crisscrossing the sea. Maritime archaeologists, carefully mapping the wreck's scattered remains, have pieced together its probable final journey. It likely set sail from a port in the Levant, its crew navigating by the stars and coastlines, heading west toward the Aegean and its powerful palace economies. This was not a short coastal hop but a long, dangerous voyage across open water, requiring immense skill to avoid treacherous shores and sudden storms. Among the most poignant finds were hinged wooden writing boards, their wax-filled surfaces long since dissolved by the sea. Did these boards hold cargo manifests, royal letters, or perhaps the captain's own navigational notes, a personal chart of landmarks and star paths? We will never know for certain, but their presence confirms that this commerce relied on more than oral tradition. It depended on recorded information. The Uluburun wreck is our most powerful evidence that Bronze Age mariners operated with a sophisticated, shared understanding of the sea, an invisible map of trade winds, current patterns, and celestial guides that allowed them to connect the ancient world. This tangible proof of a globally connected past compels us to look even further east, where another civilization was perfecting the art of charting the heavens with scientific precision. Within the Temple of Marduk, a Babylonian scholar tracked the steady path of Venus, carefully impressing its position onto a wet clay tablet. He saw not just a planet, but the goddess Ishtar herself, her movements a divine message foretelling the fate of kings and harvests. This relentless nightly vigil was the engine of a scientific revolution. The Babylonians were not merely watching the sky, they were quantifying it, creating the first known star catalogues with a mathematical precision that would shape millennia. Historians of astronomy note their genius lay in a numerical system perfectly crafted for the task. Their base 60 counting method, the source of our 60-minute hour and 360-degree circle, elegantly divided the cyclical paths of the heavens. This system allowed them to record celestial coordinates and predict planetary motions with astonishing accuracy, transforming the cosmos from a realm of mystery into a field of calculable order. Their greatest work, a compendium known as the Mull Apin, was far more than a simple list of stars. It mapped time itself, detailing the heliacal risings of constellations, those crucial moments when a star group first becomes visible before dawn, signaling the change of seasons. It established a luni-solar calendar, harmonizing the cycles of the moon with the solar year, an essential tool for both agriculture and religious ceremony. Every entry in this celestial ledger served a dual purpose, blending sharp observation with profound belief. The sky was a divine text, and every eclipse, every planetary conjunction, was an omen to be decoded by the state scholars. This seamless fusion of meticulous math and celestial divination created a legacy of precise observation that became the critical foundation for all subsequent Western astronomy. From the disciplined clay tablets of Mesopotamia, we now turn to a civilization that charted the heavens with a different purpose, one focused on a pharaoh's eternal journey among the undying stars. Inside a pharaoh's tomb, the stone ceiling is alive with painted constellations. These were far more than decoration. They were functional star clocks, the heart of an Egyptian system for mapping the night. Known as the decans, these 36 star patterns divided the sky into a celestial timetable. Each night, the sequential rising of these decans on the eastern horizon would mark the passage of time, effectively creating a clock with 36 hours, where each new star signified another segment of darkness had passed. Imagine the solemn duty of a temple priest. His eyes are fixed on the pre-dawn horizon, waiting for one specific moment, the heliacal rising of the brilliant star Sirius. When it finally flashed into view just before the sun, it was a moment of profound significance. This event heralded the imminent, life-giving flood of the Nile and the start of the Egyptian New Year. It was a date set not by any human calendar, but by the cosmos itself, a direct link between celestial rhythm and terrestrial survival. Egyptologists explain that this system was deeply woven into their spiritual worldview. Each decan was not just a star cluster, it was an entity, a deity with its own influence. The diagrams painted inside coffin lids and on temple ceilings were more than just charts. They were sacred maps that connected the fate of the soul in the afterlife to the orderly progression of the stars. The intricate diagonal star clocks found in royal tombs are complex to our modern eyes. They are laid out in grids with 12 months of the year listed across the top and the 36 decan stars listed down the side. Each night, a different set of 12 decans would be visible, each marking one of the night's 12 hours. This meant the entire chart rotated throughout the year, a brilliant and flexible system for standardizing time. This was one of humanity's earliest attempts to impose a predictable, repeatable order on the passage of nocturnal time, transforming the vast, mysterious sky into a regulated cosmic clock. This practical yet sacred application of the stars finds a fascinating parallel in another part of the ancient world, where navigators used the heavens not to mark time but to conquer space. A brilliant new star blazed in the sky, a celestial event meticulously noted by an imperial astronomer of the Han dynasty. To him, this was no random cosmic explosion, but a guest star, a direct and potent message from the heavens to the Son of Heaven himself. In ancient China, the sky was a perfect mirror of the imperial court, a vast and orderly celestial bureaucracy where constellations were not mythical hunters or animals, but emperors, ministries, palaces, and chariots, all governed by an unchanging cosmic principle. This profound world, you transformed astronomy into the highest form of state service. Scholars of Chinese science explain that this led to the creation of incredibly detailed star catalogues centuries before similar efforts in the West. They engineered sophisticated armillary spheres, beautiful bronze rings representing the circles of the sky, to track celestial bodies with breathtaking precision. Their goal was to detect any irregularity, any deviation from the perfect harmony that legitimized the emperor's divine right to rule, known as the mandate of heaven. A comet's unexpected path or a planet's retrograde motion was not just a scientific curiosity, it was a potential omen of rebellion, famine, or a shift in imperial favor. This state-sponsored system reached its graphical pinnacle with the Dunhuang Star Atlas, discovered in a sealed library cave along the Silk Road. This magnificent scroll is one of the oldest preserved star charts in the entire world. Painted on fine paper, it maps more than 1,300 stars with remarkable positional accuracy, grouping them into the familiar constellations of the Chinese celestial empire. The charts themselves are works of art and precision, depicting sweeping curved lines for the ecliptic path of the sun and moon against a backdrop of administrative constellations. This was not mapping for navigation or myth, but for maintaining cosmic and social order. It reinforced a Confucian ideal where every star, like every official, had its proper place and function. This rigid, state-centric approach to the heavens presents a striking contrast to the more fluid, story-driven cosmos of the ancient Greeks, revealing how deeply a culture's values are etched into its view of the stars. The orderly celestial bureaucracy of China presents a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of the Greek cosmos. On the shores of the Aegean, a profound intellectual alchemy was taking place, one that would forever change how we map our world. The Greeks absorbed the precise astronomical data of the Babylonians and the practical geometry of the Egyptians, but they filtered it all through a new lens, one of reason and relentless questioning. The result was a complete synthesis where the mythic stories painted across the night sky began to coexist with the first rigorous models of a measurable universe. This was not a rejection of their rich oral traditions, but a fusion, a layering of geometric order over a foundation of divine narrative. We see this fusion perfectly in the work of the poet Hesiod. In his poem Works and Days, he offers farmers a practical almanac, telling them to plant when the Pleiades star cluster sets at dawn or to harvest when the mighty Orion first appears. Yet these celestial signals are never just neutral markers. They are the daughters of Atlas and the Great Hunter, characters in an epic drama that plays out overhead each night. The sky was a vast, familiar storybook, its characters guiding the most essential tasks of daily life. This seamless blend of function and fable provided a deeply memorable framework for knowledge, ensuring that the calendar was not just memorized but lived within. This same synthesizing spirit drove the philosopher Anaximander, a student of Thales, to attempt something unprecedented. He is credited with creating one of the first known maps of the entire inhabited world. Imagine a simple disk with the Mediterranean Sea at its center, surrounded by the known lands of Europe and Asia, all floating within the great, encompassing river of Oceanus. While his map was speculative, its very creation was a revolutionary act. It proposed that the entire world, in all its diversity, could be represented on a single, logical diagram, its form debated not in temples but in public spaces through the power of reasoned argument. That spirit of debate reached its zenith in the Lyceum of Aristotle. Here, scholars used geometry and observation to propose audacious ideas, including that the Earth itself was a sphere. They pointed to the circular shadow it cast during lunar eclipses and how new stars appeared on the horizon as one sailed south. This was a monumental conceptual leap. The world was no longer a flat disk, but a finite globe whose size could, in theory, be calculated. This new model demanded a new way of imagining the heavens, leading to the powerful concept of the celestial sphere, a vast, rotating crystal shell to which the stars were fixed, with our spherical Earth suspended motionless at its very center. This model, perfected by later thinkers, was a masterpiece of geometric intuition, transforming the cosmos from a realm of capricious gods into a complex but predictable machine. This philosophical revolution in mapping, born from the marriage of myth and geometry, would soon find its ultimate test in the ambitions of an empire, proving that to conquer the world, you first had to chart it. The legend of Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece is far more than a simple adventure. It is a coded sea chart sung into existence. The epic poem Argonautica transforms a dangerous voyage across the Black Sea into a gripping narrative, a story so memorable it could guide future generations of explorers. Every fantastical encounter in the tale can be read as a navigational warning or a landmark. The fierce women of Lemnos represent one distinct culture. The harpies plaguing the blind prophet Phineus point to the challenging weather patterns of the Thracian coast, and the bronze giant Tolos embodies the rich copper resources of Crete. These were not random monsters, they were symbolic placeholders for real-world locations, and the very real challenges a ship's crew might face. The most dramatic test of the voyage reveals this practical core. To reach Colchis, Jason must pilot the Argo through the Symplegades, the legendary clashing rocks that would crush any ship attempting to pass. Literary historians see in this thrilling episode a potent metaphor for the Bosporus Strait, the narrow, turbulent, and terrifyingly real channel that connects the Aegean to the Black Sea. For early Greek sailors, navigating its strong currents and confined passage would have felt exactly like running a gauntlet of moving stone. By framing this perilous geography as a heroic trial, the poem made the technical knowledge of how to time the tides and currents unforgettable. The entire journey, from the departure at Iolcos to the final destination in Colchis, traces a plausible and documented trade route for precious goods like gold and metals. Even the stars above were woven into this living map. The large constellation Argo Navis, the ship of the Argonauts, was a permanent celestial marker, its position in the night sky a guide for any mariner following in Jason's mythical wake. This was the genius of oral tradition. It packaged vital geographical data within an irresistible story, ensuring that the knowledge of seas, stars, and shores would be preserved and passed down not as a dry list, but as an epic song of heroes and monsters. The myth of the Argo proves that the most enduring maps were once stories waiting to be sailed. This narrative cartography finds a stunning parallel in a single, enigmatic object that captures the entire worldview of its creators. A scholar in a 15th century Italian library unrolls a long-forgotten manuscript, his eyes widening at the intricate lines and Greek labels. He is holding a copy of Claudius Ptolemy's Geographia, a text lost to Western Europe for 1,000 years. This was not merely a rediscovery of an old book, it was the reactivation of a system. Ptolemy, working in the great library of Alexandria during the 2nd century, had achieved something no one had before. He synthesized all the geographical knowledge of the Greco-Roman world into a single, reproducible framework. His genius was to impose a mathematical grid over the known world, a web of latitudes and longitudes that could locate any city, mountain, or river with coordinates. Cartographic historians note that this was the birth of systematic cartography. Ptolemy provided future mapmakers with detailed instructions, not just a single image. He gave them the tools to project the curved surface of the Earth, which he knew was a sphere, onto a flat sheet of parchment. His catalogue listed over 8,000 places, from the Canaries in the west to the Silk Road metropolises of China in the east, a staggering feat of compilation. Yet this brilliant system contained a critical flaw. His calculation of the Earth's circumference was significantly too small. This error would later convince a Genos explorer named Columbus that a westward voyage to Asia was far more feasible than it truly was, a miscalculation with world-altering consequences. The maps drawn from his data reveal the edges of ancient knowledge. They depict a landlocked Indian Ocean, cut off from the Atlantic by a vast southern continent that connected Africa to Asia, a theoretical landmass that filled the space of the unknown. For over a millennium, Ptolemy's Geographia was the absolute authority, a perfect, logical, and beautifully wrong model of the world that perfectly demonstrates how a map can shape destiny long after its ink has dried. This legacy of a single, authoritative world finds a fascinating counterpoint in the north, where Viking navigators charted their course not with grids and coordinates, but with a deep, intuitive reading of the sea and sky itself. A Viking navigator stands on the deck of his longship, the horizon a featureless grey wall of sea mist. He holds a translucent crystal of Iceland spar to his eye, rotating it slowly until a faint, telltale dot of light appears, revealing the sun's hidden position. This sunstone, described in the Icelandic sagas, was likely their secret weapon against the disorienting fog of the North Atlantic. Experimental archaeologists have proven that such crystals, a form of calcite, can polarize light, allowing a skilled user to pinpoint the sun's location even on a completely overcast day. This was not magic but sophisticated applied physics. Their toolkit extended beyond crystals. Norse scholars point to the discovery of a wooden fragment from a site in Greenland, believed to be part of a sun compass. This simple dial, with a central gnomon that cast a shadow, could be used to find true north at the precise midpoint of the day, providing a reliable directional guide when the stars were hidden. But their most profound map was the sea itself. They possessed an oral encyclopedia of natural signs, knowing that certain species of seabirds flew directly toward land at dusk, that the color and temperature of the water changed near known currents, and that the migration paths of whales often paralleled safe passages. A saga passage might give a deceptively simple instruction, like sail due west from Bergen, a directive that relied on the navigator's innate sense of dead reckoning, his ability to feel the ship's speed and direction for days on end. These mental charts led them to legendary places like Vinland, a name long thought to be mere myth until archaeological proof of a Norse settlement was uncovered at Elant's Oaks Meadows in Newfoundland. This was not blind luck, it was the culmination of generations of accumulated experience, a deep, intuitive connection with the environment that allowed them to cross an ocean without a single drawn chart. Their success stands as a powerful testament to a different kind of knowledge, one written not on parchment but in the memory of waves, winds, and the flight of a bird. This mastery of the open ocean through instinct and oral tradition presents a striking counterpoint to the meticulous ink and vellum world of the medieval Mediterranean, where mapmakers began to chart the sea not from memory, but with lines radiating from a fixed center. A Genos cartographer leans close to his vellum, his pen tracing the familiar curve of the Italian coastline by the flicker of a single candle. He is not inventing this world, he is copying it from a living memory, translating the hard-won knowledge of sailors into a web of ink and precision. This was the birth of the Portolan chart, a revolution in how humanity saw the sea. Unlike the grand, symbolic world maps of the past, these were working documents, stained with salt water and meant for the cramped quarters of a ship's cabin. Historians of navigation point out that their incredible accuracy, especially for the Mediterranean and Black Sea coasts, almost certainly came from now lost pilots' notebooks called Portolan. These were the raw data, logs filled with sailing directions, landmarks, and soundings, compiled over generations by countless mariners. The cartographer's genius was to synthesize all this scattered experience into a single, breathtakingly practical image. The most striking feature of any Portolan is its spiderweb of room lines. These straight lines radiate from multiple compass roses drawn across the chart, creating a grid of constant bearing. A captain could simply lay a ruler between 2 points, note which line it paralleled, and then set his compass to sail that exact course across open water. It was a system of stunning simplicity and power. To make this navigational lattice the priority, the mapmakers made a deliberate choice. Inland areas are often blank or wildly distorted, mere empty spaces between the all-important coasts. Every city and cape is labeled, but the text is written perpendicular to the shoreline, as if the land itself is shouting its identity to anyone approaching from the sea. The oldest surviving example, the Carta Pisana from the late 13th century, marks a profound turning point. Here, the world is no longer defined by theology or myth, but by the empirical evidence of latitude readings and magnetic compass bearings. This was a new kind of truth, written not by scholars in libraries, but by the hands of those who braved the waves. The same meticulous drive to chart a known world for practical journeying was being applied, in a different context, to the ultimate unknown, as cultures painted celestial domes to guide the soul's final voyage. A Roman marble statue carries the entire weight of the classical sky upon its shoulders. The Farnese Atlas, sculpted in the 2nd century AD, shows the weary Titan straining under a celestial globe etched with constellations, the oldest known surviving depiction of the complete Greek cosmos in 3 dimensions. This is far more than a mythological scene. It is a portable planetarium carved from stone. The sculpture was rediscovered in the 16th century, missing its head and arms, which were later restored, but the globe itself remained a puzzle of worn figures and faint lines. Art historians specializing in the classical world believe this Roman piece is a meticulous copy of a much older Hellenistic Greek original, preserving a snapshot of astronomical knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. To decode its surface is to look directly into the ancient mind, where heroes and monsters were fixed in the firmament. The figure of Hercules is there, club in hand, forever performing his labors among the stars. Nearby, the mighty hunter Orion raises his shield against the charging bull, Taurus, while the tiny, delicate cluster of the Pleiades shimmers as a compact group of 7 sisters. Each constellation is not just a random scattering of stars, but a precise arrangement. Scholars have noted that the relative positions of these figures on the globe correspond so accurately to the night sky of the era that they can even attempt to date the original source material, perhaps to the time of the astronomer Hipparchus. This synthesis is breathtaking. The Greeks took the raw observational data of the Babylonians and transformed it into a grand, unified narrative, a celestial epic where myth became a memory aid for science and the stars told the stories of their culture. The Farnese Atlas stands as a monumental testament to this fusion, a spiritual cosmogram as much as a scientific instrument, proving that to map the heavens was to give physical form to belief itself. The Pacific Ocean stretches for millions of square miles, an expanse of blue so vast it seems to defy any attempt at a chart. Yet for the Polynesian peoples, this was not an empty void but a pathway, meticulously mapped in the mind. Theirs was a living cartography, written not on parchment but in the rhythms of the sea itself, A modern wayfinder aboard the voyaging canoe Hokulea does not look down at a GPS screen, but feels the world through the deck. They sense the subtle shift as a new swell pattern, refracted around a distant island, meets the hull. They watch the flight of the White Tern, knowing its evening return flight points unerringly toward land. At night, they fix their position by a zenith star, a celestial body that passes directly overhead, creating a stable anchor point for maintaining latitude on the open ocean. This is wayfinding, an art form of perception that guided the greatest human migration across our planet. Master navigator Nainoa Thompson describes the foundational tool as a star compass, a mental construct that divides the 360-degree horizon into 32 directional houses. In this system, the navigator is always at the center of a great circle. They do not follow a single star, but remember the specific houses where hundreds of stars both rise and set, creating a rotating celestial clockwork that provides a constant bearing through the night. This knowledge was never written in a book. It was encoded into chants and stories, rhythmic poems that listed sequences of stars and islands, turning abstract navigation into a memorable, melodic narrative. A single chant could contain the entire sailing directions for a voyage of weeks, preserving the precise sequence of star paths and the names of each island's distinctive sea marks. This was a dynamic map, constantly updated by the navigator's senses. They learned to read the faint, dark loom of clouds over an unseen atoll, and to interpret the specific phosphorescence of the water that signaled a deep ocean current. This tradition proves that the most sophisticated map can be a deeply embodied and communal knowledge system, perfectly adapted to its environment over countless generations. The revival of this practice in our own time is a story of cultural reawakening. After centuries of dormancy, the construction and voyage of the Hokulea in the 1970s was not a mere historical reenactment, but a reclamation of identity. It demonstrated that this ancient science was not lost, only waiting to be remembered, offering a profound lesson in sustainability and resilience. The Polynesian Wayfinder moves through the world with a relationship of deep reciprocity, seeing the ocean not as a challenge to be conquered, but as an ancestor to be understood. This intimate, holistic world presents a stunning contrast to the map-making traditions that flourished in another vast landscape, where the peoples of the Americas charted their own unique relationship with the cosmos. A Maya-Day keeper unrolls a deerskin codex, his fingers tracing the path of a glyph. He is not looking for a place, but for a moment, reading a map of time itself to find the most favorable day for a community's planting ceremony. This is the heart of Mesoamerican cosmology, a world view where maps did not separate space from time, but beautifully intertwined them. At the center of this universe stood the Great World Tree, a living axis mundi whose roots plunged into the watery underworld of Xibalba. Its trunk passed through the earthly realm, and its branches reached into the 13-layered heavens. This cosmic tree was not a myth to them. It was a functional model, a spiritual and geographical coordinate system that oriented every aspect of life, from the layout of their cities to the destiny of an individual. To understand their maps is to understand a reality where every point in space was also a point in a sacred, cyclical narrative. The most stunning embodiment of this principle is the colossal Aztec sunstone, often mistaken for a simple calendar. This 12-foot-wide monolith is a dense cosmogram, a complete history of the universe carved in stone. Its central face represents the fifth sun, the current cosmic era in which we live, surrounded by the four previous creations or suns, each of which ended in cataclysm. The Olan glyph at its heart means movement, a constant reminder that this era, too, is sustained only through motion and energy, often interpreted as the need for ceremonial offering to maintain the sun's journey across the sky. The entire disk is a map of time on a cosmic scale, charting the Aztec belief that the universe had been destroyed and reborn multiple times, and that the stability of their world depended on a fragile balance maintained through ritual. This was a map that demanded participation. The Maya refined this integration of time and space to an extraordinary degree within their screenfold books, the codices. The Dresden Codex contains intricate astronomical tables that track the cycles of Venus with remarkable accuracy. They could predict its appearances as both the morning and evening star, events that held profound meaning. The heliacal rising of Venus was associated with Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, and was considered a potent, often dangerous time associated with the upheaval of war and the change of rulers. For the Maya, this was not merely observing a planet, it was reading the mood of a god, a necessary act of statecraft to anticipate conflict or to sanctify a new king's accession. Their maps of the stars were directly linked to the fate of their cities, a perfect fusion of precise astronomy, political power, and deep theology. This holistic vision challenges our modern compartmentalization of knowledge, presenting a universe where geography, astronomy, and sacred time were a single, seamless whole. To consult one of their maps was to engage in an act of cosmic maintenance, a way of ensuring the sun would continue to rise and the world would not fall back into chaos. From these complex spiritual cartographies, we find a different kind of map emerging from the stark beauty of the desert, one etched not in codexes or stone, but directly into the surface of the earth. From the high hills overlooking the Peruvian desert, the true scale of the Nazca lines reveals itself. What seems from the ground to be a meaningless network of scraped paths resolves from this vantage point into a gallery of colossal figures, a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a sinuous spider, a winding monkey. These geoglyphs, created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 CE, are one of history's most captivating terrestrial maps. The central mystery is their purpose. Why would a people invest such immense effort to create images so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the air? One compelling theory suggests they are a monumental celestial chart. Certain long, arrow straight lines have been found to align with the point on the horizon where the sun rises during the summer solstice, while others may track the heliacal rising of bright stars like those in the constellation Orion. This would transform the entire desert into a giant astronomical observatory, linking the Earth directly to the cycles of the heavens. Yet another school of thought points to the life-giving force in this arid landscape, water. The Nazca region sits above a complex network of underground aquifers. Some researchers propose that many of the figures and lines correspond directly to the flow of these subterranean water sources, acting as a massive hydrological map. The trapezoids and zigzag shapes could have marked the locations of aquifers, serving as both a practical guide for accessing water and a ceremonial pathway for ritual processions intended to honor and appease water deities. The engineering behind these lines is itself a marvel of ancient knowledge. Without the ability to fly, the Nazca used simple but brilliant techniques of scaling. They likely created small-scale models and then transferred the design to the desert floor using a series of stakes and cords, masterfully maintaining perfect proportions across immense distances by sighting along these guideposts. They cleared the dark, sun-baked surface stones to reveal the lighter, gypsum-rich soil beneath, creating lines that have endured for millennia. Whether the lines were a star calendar, a water map, or a sacred space for walking rituals, their true function was likely a blend of all these purposes. They represent a profound act of world-making, a desire to inscribe cultural and cosmic order onto the very skin of the earth. This was a map not for human travelers, but for the gods, a permanent prayer for water and celestial favor written in the language of the land itself. This monumental effort to reconcile the earthly and the divine finds a fascinating echo centuries later, as European mapmakers struggled to fit a newly expanding world into an ancient, faith-based framework. The monk's quill traces a perfect circle on the vellum, a shape representing divine perfection and the entirety of creation. Inside this sacred O, he draws a T, its stem the Mediterranean Sea, and its crossbar the joined waters of the Nile and the Don rivers. This schematic, known as a TO map, is not a guide for travelers but a diagram of salvation history. Jerusalem sits precisely at the center of this world, a spiritual focal point from which all meaning radiates. The three continents formed by the T are assigned to the three sons of Noah, a visual representation of how the world was repopulated after the Great Flood described in Scripture. Asia crowns the top half, with Europe and Africa occupying the lower quarters. For the monk illuminating this page in a quiet scriptorium, this was the true geography, a world ordered by faith and biblical narrative. Historians of the medieval period note that these maps were teaching tools designed to illustrate a Christian understanding of the universe's origin and structure. The known world was framed within a sacred story, its edges populated not with accurate coastlines but with allegory and wonder. Biblical sites like the Garden of Eden and the Tower of Babel share space with inscriptions about mythical creatures, placed in the distant corners to signify the strange and monstrous lands beyond the reach of salvation. The most magnificent surviving example is the Hereford Mappa Mundi, a sprawling map drawn on a single sheet of calfskin. It is less a chart of the earth than an encyclopedia of belief, crammed with over 500 illustrations of cities, animals, biblical events, and classical legends. A viewer could find Adam and Eve, the Minotaur's labyrinth, and a depiction of the phoenix, all coexisting on a landscape defined by theology. These maps reveal a profound truth about cartography, that its primary purpose can shift entirely to meet the needs of its culture. In an age where spiritual journey was considered the ultimate voyage, the map became a guide for the soul, compressing space into a symbol of divine order. This schematic, faith-driven world stands in startling contrast to the intricate brass astrolabes being crafted by astronomers in the very same era, instruments that sought to measure the heavens with mathematical precision. A polished brass disc no larger than a saucer holds a miniature universe in the palm of your hand. This is the astrolabe, the crowning achievement of pre-telescopic astronomy, a device that transformed the abstract celestial sphere into a tangible, functional calculator. In a courtyard in medieval Baghdad, a scholar lifts his instrument, suspending it by a ring to ensure it hangs perfectly vertical. The night air is cool and the stars are sharp points of light. He sights a bright star through the alidade, the rotating rule on the instrument's back, and reads its altitude from the engraved scale. With this single measurement, he can now answer a dozen different questions. He rotates the pierced, web-like rete on the front, its delicate pointers representing the brightest fixed stars, until it matches the configuration overhead. Instantly, he can read the precise time of night. More importantly for his community, he can determine the exact moment for the evening prayer, aligning the rhythm of daily life with the unwavering clockwork of the cosmos. The true genius of the astrolabe lies in its layered design. Historians of technology explain that its heart is a set of interchangeable plates called tympans, each one a custom map of the sky for a specific latitude. Engraved onto these plates is a coordinate grid, a flattened projection of the celestial sphere for that particular location, showing the lines of altitude and azimuth. The rete, a star chart cut from brass, rotates over this fixed plate, its movement mimicking the daily rotation of the heavens. This creates a dynamic model where the user can simulate the sky for any given time and date. To find the time of sunrise, you simply align the sun's position on the ecliptic circle, etched onto the rete, with the eastern horizon line on the plate. To locate a star's position for navigation, you match the rete to the observed sky and read its coordinates directly. This was analog computation at its most elegant, a beautiful synthesis of art and engineering where every curve and line served a mathematical purpose. It was, in many ways, the smartphone of its era, a single device that served as a timepiece, a navigational aid, a surveyor's tool, and a reference for astrological charts. Its creation was itself a map of global knowledge born from Greek geometry, refined with Persian observational data, and crafted with artistic flourishes that reflected the Islamic world's deep investment in science. This instrument represents the ultimate portable cosmos, a universe you could hold and manipulate to answer both practical and profound questions. The existence of such a sophisticated device forces us to look back across the entire journey of ancient mapping, from cave dots to handheld brass, and ask what all these diverse traditions ultimately bequeath to our modern world. The mighty hunter Orion strides across our winter sky today just as he did for the Babylonians and Greeks, his story echoing from ancient star charts directly into our cinemas. This is the living legacy of the oldest maps, a vocabulary of myth that continues to define our modern imagination. The names we give to the stars and the stories we attach to them are not random. They are a direct inheritance from the cultures who first connected those celestial dots. The constellation Orion is more than a pattern. It is an archetype, a character whose narrative of strength, pursuit, and tragedy has been adapted for millennia, finding new life in comic books and blockbuster films. Our cultural landscape is still dotted with the landmarks of ancient myth. The Pillars of Hercules, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar, were once the literal edge of the known world for Mediterranean sailors. That powerful idea of a gateway to the unknown persists, fueling endless speculation and exploration, from real ocean voyages to fictional quests. Similarly, the lost continent of Atlantis, first described by Plato as a powerful kingdom that sank beneath the waves, began as a philosophical allegory. Yet it has become one of our most enduring myths, a blank space on the map that invites us to dream of forgotten civilizations and hidden history, inspiring countless books, films, and even serious scientific theories. Cultural historians point out that these places and figures endure because they tap into fundamental human themes: the fear of the abyss, the allure of the undiscovered, and the cautionary tale of hubris. But the influence runs even deeper than names and places. The very structure of our most beloved stories was mapped out in these ancient epics. The arduous journey of Odysseus struggling to return home after the Trojan War established a narrative template of trials, temptations, and ultimate redemption that feels as fresh today as it did 3,000 years ago. The heroic quest of Jason and the Argonauts, a story that functioned as a coded sea chart, provided a blueprint for the ensemble adventure, a group of specialists facing fantastic challenges in pursuit of a singular goal. This pattern, often called the hero's journey, is the invisible architecture behind so much of contemporary storytelling, from the adventures of Luke Skywalker to the trials of Harry Potter. These ancient maps, whether of the stars or the seas, gave us more than directions. They gave us a symbolic language for the human experience. They provided a cast of characters, a catalogue of challenges, and a geography of the soul that continues to shape how we conceptualize adventure, discovery, and the mysteries that lie just beyond the horizon. The enduring power of this mythic geography proves that our ancestors were not just mapping the world, they were mapping the timeless contours of story itself. A satellite passes silently over a desert landscape, its sensors seeing far more than the human eye. This is the new frontier of cartographic history, where advanced technology is peeling back the layers of time to reveal the original genius of ancient maps. Multispectral imaging, for instance, can resurrect texts once thought lost forever. By scanning a fragile papyrus with different wavelengths of light, from infrared to ultraviolet, researchers can detect the faint chemical trace of faded iron gall ink, making invisible words legible again. This process has brought new passages of the Turin papyrus map to light, clarifying routes to forgotten gold mines and quarries. Similarly, LiDAR technology, which uses laser pulses to map the ground from the air, is stripping away dense forest canopies to reveal the true scope of ancient landscapes. In Central America, these aerial surveys have exposed vast networks of Maya roads and ceremonial centers perfectly aligned with solar and stellar events, showing that their urban planning was a direct extension of their cosmic maps. Digital humanists now use Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, to test the claims of history. They can input Ptolemy's 2,000-year-old coordinates into a digital globe, comparing his world against our own satellite models to understand the precise nature of his errors and his astonishing accuracies. They can also simulate ancient voyages, modeling the likely routes of Minoan traders or Polynesian wayfinders by plugging data on seasonal winds, ocean currents, and sailable pathways into powerful software. These virtual journeys reveal the incredible efficiency of their intuitive knowledge. One remarkable project involves the carbonized scrolls from Herculaneum, libraries baked solid by the volcanic heat of Mount Vesuvius. For centuries, unrolling them meant destroying them. Now, high-resolution CT scanning and sophisticated algorithms are allowing scholars to virtually unwrap these scrolls, peeling apart their digital layers to read the text inside without ever touching the physical artifact. Another initiative is creating interactive models of Babylonian celestial omens, linking specific planetary positions from their star catalogues to the historical events they predicted, allowing us to trace the logic behind their astral divination. This fusion of cutting-edge technology and historical inquiry does more than just verify ancient sophistication. It builds a bridge of understanding. We are no longer just looking at a static map. We are beginning to see the dynamic world it represented, to understand the calculations and the cosmology that guided its creation. This high-tech rediscovery brings our entire journey full circle, connecting humanity's most ancient impulse to chart its world with the most powerful tools of the future, allowing the whispers of the past to speak with a newfound clarity. Our understanding of the ancient world is built as much upon profound absences as it is upon surviving artifacts. For every Nebra Sky Disk or Babylonian World Map that endures, countless others have vanished into the dust, their secrets lost with them. The single greatest catastrophe for cartographic history may have been the destruction of the Library of Alexandria. Within its vast halls, scholars believe, were housed unique star catalogues from Babylon, detailed sailing directions for the entire Mediterranean, and geographical treatises that synthesized knowledge from across the known world. The loss of this repository represents an intellectual chasm, a library of maps and measurements that could have rewritten our entire timeline of discovery. The fire that consumed it did not just burn papyrus, it erased entire worlds of understanding. This sense of a fragmented record is embodied by objects like the Phaistos disk. Found on Crete, this clay disk from the 2nd millennium BC is covered in spirals of stamped symbols, a script that has stubbornly resisted all attempts at translation for over a century. Is it a hymn, a legal document, or perhaps a map of sacred sites? Without a Rosetta Stone to provide a key, its purpose remains one of history's most captivating silent puzzles. These gaps in our knowledge fuel vigorous debates among researchers. One of the most contentious is the case of the Vinland map. This parchment appears to show a pre-Columbian outline of North America, a stunning suggestion that European knowledge of the New World existed long before Columbus. Yet, intense scientific analysis of its ink has yielded conflicting results, leaving experts divided. Is it a genuine medieval artifact or an incredibly sophisticated 20th century forgery designed to rewrite history? The question remains tantalizingly open. Across the Pacific, another mystery simmers. Sweet potatoes, a crop native to the Americas, were found across Polynesia when European explorers first arrived. How did they get there? This botanical clue points to the strong possibility of Polynesian voyagers reaching the shores of South America, or perhaps South American rafts drifting into the Pacific centuries before any recorded contact. The extent of this interaction is a hotly pursued question, with genetic studies of the sweet potato and ancient DNA analysis beginning to trace the outlines of a lost trans-Pacific network. These enduring enigmas do not represent failures of scholarship, but rather its very heart. They remind us that the past is not a settled fact but a dynamic conversation, a puzzle where each new discovery, from a sunken ship to a scanned manuscript, can overturn our most cherished assumptions. This landscape of unanswered questions ensures that the quest to trace humanity's oldest maps is a living, breathing investigation, one that continues to challenge and inspire. This journey across millennia reveals a truth as constant as the Northern Star: our innate need to find our place in the cosmos. From Egyptian star clocks to Polynesian mental charts, from Greek mythic voyages to the precise coastlines of Portolan maps, we find a continuous thread of human curiosity and ingenuity. These were never mere tools for survival. They were profound expressions of a worldview, beautiful syntheses where observed reality danced with myth and scientific precision, walked hand in hand with the spirit. They guided explorers across trackless oceans and gave philosophers a framework for the entire universe, turning the terrifying void of the unknown into a landscape of meaning and connection. When we glance at the glowing screen of a modern GPS or spin a digital globe on our devices, we are the direct inheritors of this long and brilliant tradition. We are still performing that most ancient of rituals, transforming the chaos of the world into a story we can understand and navigate. Let this exploration be a personal reminder of the enduring power that comes from simply looking up at the stars and wondering, from daring to chart the unknown, and from the responsibility we all share to leave a map, in whatever form it may take, for those who will follow us. I would love to hear which ancient map or navigator captured your imagination the most, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you are eager for more journeys into the deep mysteries of our past, be sure to subscribe for future exploration.